But the only good thing or the silver lining yesterday was, while the index largely consolidated, that the breadth actually remained to hold out in favor of the advances by a huge margin actually within the liquid F&O universe at least. So yeah, lots to talk about. Auto sales, earnings still not done, and the November cyclicality.
So Aisha, we can find reasons why market should correct. We can talk about geopolitical concerns, Fed movement, we can talk about which way inflation is moving, but the bottom line here is that the markets have hit a pause button. Mid cap and small cap stocks have retreated, but there is no major breakdown. So the construct of the market, I think, is very simple, that at higher level, the market is getting jammed. And we are now clearly in a very well-defined range, and that well-defined range may just continue for next couple of weeks or maybe for next couple of days. So I think we must acknowledge that in the near term, given where the global positioning is, where the local positioning is, where the momentum is, the market has hit a pause button. If I'm a bull, I would say that's great news and that's victory for the bulls, because the mid-air turbulence, what we thought, which happened in the month of October, which could have caused some crash landing, that has not happened. But because of that mid-air turbulence, the markets have come down, and then for the markets to gain altitude, well, the weather has to get better or the terrain has to get better. I think it is evident that right now the commitment levels are low. It is evident that nobody is participating. It is evident that right now mid and small cap inertia which was there, that in a sense has retreated. And that is typical of a market. If the market was running, the market was at 25,000 feet, it has come down to 15,000 feet. And I think it will just stay there for some more time before it gains some degree of altitude. So the mid-air turbulence, what we thought was there in October, all of us thought, okay, it's going to be crash landing. No, that's not happened. Yeah. So if I'm a bull, I would say the setup for me, given what was thrown at us in the month of October, you've so far come on the right side of the trade.
Okay, so perhaps a little bit of consolidation, and that's what we witnessed in the markets in yesterday's trade. Just to wrap up what happened across the globe as well, you do have the Asian markets, which this morning are looking a little bit mixed. You've got the US markets, which did manage to gain traction, ending up by close to 0.5% or so a piece. And then, of course, the Fed concluding its two-day monetary policy meeting later in the day with expectations that they will stand pat on interest rates. All of that is going to weigh on global sentiment. But back home, earnings are on in full throttle. Lots of heavyweights have been declaring their earnings. Among the lot, there's been L&T, and that engineering major did put out a pretty strong set of numbers. You had the overall revenues, which grew 19%. Margins as well normalized in the last 3 quarters. There was an exceptional loss of about 1570 crore rupees, which ate into Bharti Airtel's number. And you had Tata Consumer in the spotlight as well, with the premium brands outperforming the popular economy brands. And then today, Nikunj, a whole host of earnings.
See, if you first look at the big picture from earnings, and I'm just taking the leaf of the Morgan Stanley report, and this is the headline. Q3 September 23 earnings so far, early trends, almost 40% of the universe they cover is out with numbers. Early trends indicate an earnings beat on our analyst estimates. And even though market remained cautious as advised by the share price performance post announcement, we think that this earnings season warrants upgrade, not a downgrade. So for me, that is the truism.
Not a downgrade, yeah.
It is not a downgrade. Even though the base effect for some of the companies have come in. I can count on my fingertips, barring IT, how many companies have come out with bad set of numbers or poor set of numbers. And I'll have to double count and maybe triple count to look at companies which have beaten estimates or they've given a very rosy commentary. You know, if companies like Blue Star, which are consumer-facing companies, or Marico, which have gone through a tough time because of what's happening to the FMCG business, if they are giving good guidance, that is then clear indication of which way things are essentially moving, at least for the consumer pack per se. I think Maruti numbers, if you frankly ask me, they were good. Cipla numbers were very good. So there is more earnings beat rather than earnings disappointment. Now in terms of specific, Bharti, L&T, and we got numbers from Tata Consumer. None of these numbers are bad or good. I think in the near term, the price target for all these 3 companies are unlikely to be changed. The dark horse there, I think, is Birlasoft. We'll discuss those numbers when Anisha comes in. And where I think there is a bit of a disappointment, and this is a Rakesh Jhunjhunwala-backed company, that is Star Health. And it's like saying, even though it's in a health business, giving healthcare to others, the company right now is feeling a bit feverish.
Absolutely.
So that is the way it is. But I just want to go back to the November cyclicality part. I think it's important for us to understand where the November cyclicality part is and what the history has been. 5 out of 10 times in the month of November, markets have given 5 out of 10. It's like even Steven, split right in the middle. 5 out of 10 times markets have gone up, and 5 out of 10 times markets have gone lower. So perhaps there is no trend at play in the large cap stocks. In the mid cap stocks, well, it's more positive than negative. The 10-year average return is 2%. So I will not be surprised that the November cyclicality, which we always talk about, which is more positive than negative for large cap stocks and neutral for large cap stocks, it's neutral for mid cap stocks and more positive, that could be at play. And if you're looking at the near term picture, Aisha, since we didn't talk about it, I thought I'll briefly mention it. Look, we've had a 2-day bounce and we've seen a okay bounce from Thursday's low. So today, because there is a bit of a weak link, will Nifty go back to the lower end of the range or will it stay up? So for me, I think the near term, the test really would be that the recovery, what we've seen in last 2 days, that will sustain. And I think that will sustain because crude is down, volatility is down, FI selling has reduced. So you want to make a case that you want to buy the market if it falls more.
Well, Reliance HDFC Bank couldn't quite do the trick. Maybe it's L&T today, considering strong numbers. Order booking has also been extremely robust. So let's see whether L&T can actually pull up the market sentiment today, although the GIFT Nifty is indicating a bit of a quiet start for us. But that's not it. You'll have your hands full today. You've got the October sales data, which is going to trickle in. You've got tonight the Fed meet outcome. That, of course, is something that we're going to only react to tomorrow morning. But primary market activity as well. Both Cello, Honasa still on.
So Aisha, it's incredible that one side we are talking about the market hitting some kind of a pause button, but the IPO market is quite vibrant, which means the merchant bankers pretty much know that the activity in the IPO market is something which will keep them afloat. And that also is an indication of that how much merchant bankers are feeling confident of the liquidity, because these IPOs go through when they get some amount of commitment from the IPO, from the merchant bankers and from the investment bankers. The IPO cycle is very short. It's a 3-day cycle. So by the time you start talking about the IPO, the listing actually happens. Now within that, we've discussed, Mamaearth, Honasa in terms of where the company is, what a great franchise it is, but what it means for the shareholders. So I don't expect that on a net basis you will get a very large bumper response, at least on Honasa. Of course, the standard guys which anchor investors who have a 5, 6, 7 year view, they would be there. Cello, I think, is a more interesting one purely because of the space which they represents, the brand they have. It's a company which in a sense has diversified very well. The IPO is not very richly priced, but it's a big IPO of about 2,000 crore. So between that, I think the more tilt would be towards Cello world rather than Mamaearth in terms of brand. Cello is a much superior brand in terms of reach and in terms of size. But for me, I think the tone and tonality still is centered around the fact that it's been a bad October, and even though it's been a bad October, just look at 2 companies. Just look at the IPO market. Every day there is a listing. I think there's a listing today also, right?
Yeah, perhaps it is. Yes, you've got Blue Jet, that is going to be listing today. So clearly, yes, as we've been saying, there's been a lot of fervor within the primary markets, but those were some of the more tracked and more talked about companies.